All right, welcome back to the Garlic Marketing Show. I'm Garlic here, and we're going to talk about a different topic we've touched on before, but never with the expert, the author of Giftology, the founder of the Ruhlin group, John Ruhlin. Thank you for being on the show. And don't forget that this is brought to you by videocasestory.com, one of the best ways to entice customers, excite your audience, excite your team is through video case stories. Videocasestory.com is the easy button for that. All right, John Ruhlin, author of Giftology. Today we're going to talk about how not to throw your money out during the gifting season, types of gifts to send. I mean, it's an awesome book. I think everyone should read Giftology because it's more than gifts. It's more than just sending a gift. I think it's a way of thinking. But John, real quick, because there's 8,000 things about you. You do speaking and everything. Tell me, I love your story about how you got into gifting. So just real quick synopsis of when you realized that this is such a powerful tool.
What I realized early on, 20 years ago, really it's not a gifting conversation. Nobody cares about gifts. Even people that are in the gifting conversation, nobody cares about gifts. Even people that are in the gifting business, I love language. If you've read the book, The 5 Love Languages, it's words of affirmation and physical touch. But I'm an introvert by nature, and most people in business want more referrals. They want more access. They want more loyalty from their employees. We all want a result, right? And most people don't understand that if they suck at showing gifts, they're basically suck at showing other relationships that they matter. And I learned that early on when I saw my original mentor, Paul, when I was 20. I grew up this poor farm kid. I didn't grow up around nice gifts or money or country clubs. But I went to school to go be a doctor to get out because I hated manual labor. I hated milking goats and splitting wood and all the stuff you do on a farm. And my mentor, Paul, was this rainmaking attorney. He owned a law firm. It was my girlfriend's dad. So I got this inside behind the scenes look at him. And he was super generous, always giving things away, really over the top. Not like, hey, here's a koozie. It was like, I find a deal on noodles and I buy a semi-load of noodles and everybody at church the next Sunday. So I'm like, Paul, that's 40 grand. Are you nuts? That was just one thing that he did. And he's like, John, I just love making people smile. So people flocked to Paul. I saw that. I was like, I want to be Paul when I'm 60. I'm 20, so I started to mimic what Paul was doing. So I interned with Cubs, and I thought all of his clients, I'm this country bumpkin kid, all these CEOs are into hunting, fishing, outdoors, all this stuff. And I'm thinking maybe he'll have mercy on me and buy these $100 to $200 a piece pocket knives that Cutco made. And so I work up the courage. By the way, awkward conversation to pitch your girlfriend's dad knives. That's just weird, right? So I'm at the dinner table. Yeah, go ahead.
You know what's funny? It's funny. It would have not been with my wife because that was one of the first things she said about her dad she's like, so he does this thing where he sharpens his knives at night. Don't be worried.
It's like polishing your shotgun, right? It's like, So I pitched him the knives. I'm thinking maybe he'll have mercy on me. Because he was super generous, and he's like, John, I don't want to order the pocket knives. I want to order paring knives. I'm like, you want to give a bunch of grown men dudes a kitchen tool? I'm like, why? And he said, John, the reason I have more referrals, access, deal flow is I found out a simple truth that's if you take care of the family in business, everything else takes care of itself. So it was that point, that was like the lightning bolt. Somebody hit me up, said ahead with a Louisville Slugger. I was like, holy crap, it's not about the stupid knives. Although to this day, we still do millions of dollars in these knives 21 years later, even for pro sports teams. We give, Jacksonville Jaguars down in your neck of the woods, they're a client. Guess what they're giving next year to all their clients? And they've been doing it for 6 years. The stupid knives. Why? It's not the knife. Any person you're giving a gift to can buy their own gift. It's the thoughtfulness. It's the personalization. It's including their spouse. It's giving them something that they'll use with their family. It's all the other little things that communicate to that relationship that I see you, you matter. Instead of taking them to the Super Bowl or another round of golf, you do something for their family and their assistant. So I started to mimic these things as I was in college. And Cutco's worked with about 2 million sales reps over 70 years. We became their #1 rep and distributor in the history of the company out of 2 million people. Not because I'm a good sales rep. I'm an introvert. I hate speaking on stage, although we do it a lot now. But I started to understand there's a recipe, there's a methodology, there's a psychology. And most people in business say they're relationship driven, but all they do is give gifts at transactional times. They mess up and communicate the wrong things, and then they wonder why it doesn't work. They're going against what they should be doing because they're following the playbook everybody else has set. And so, that's the core of Giftology. It's just really a relationship building book. If you need to show up in unusual ways for relationships, in uncommon ways, then there is a way to do it, and it's not the way that most people have ever been taught.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing. I mean, that's just a valuable lesson. I always think back to the story of, the why do you cut the ends off the meatloaf, Mom? And no one ever asked. And then it's like, oh, because back in the day we had such a small oven and there was no reason to do it anymore. And I think that's such an important thing for people to think about because they just do stuff because they see other people doing it. I see it in marketing all the time. We're like, oh, I'm like, we've got to have business cards. I'm like, why do you need business cards? When's the last time you used a business card, right? And I think the same thing with gifts. And I want to get into the holiday season because I think it's important. But what else do you see as the biggest mistakes in using gifts for these key relationships?
If you take your best clients or employees out to dinner, you're not going to McDonald's, right? You're not going to you're going to take them to Morton's or Four Seasons. If you're taking them to a hotel, they're not staying at the Motel 6. They're staying at the Ritz-Carlton, whatever. Most people do their experiential entertaining of clients, partners, employees, investors, mentors at a level 10. And then when it comes time to give a gift, it's like, what's your budget? $50, we're giving peanut brittle at the holidays. Meanwhile, they just spent $500 on dinner the night before, $5,000 sponsoring an event, or $50,000. Or they're hiring their employee, they're growing fast, and they'll make a decision in 5 minutes to hire 2 more employees and add $100,000 in overhead, fixed cost labor. And then I ask them, when's the last time you invested $100,000 into the top 50 relationships that allow you to even have a company? And it's like I punch them in the face and in the gut at the same time. They're like, nobody's ever asked us that before. Why would you invest $100,000 over here and make the decision in 5 minutes, but you won't pour into the relationship? So most people don't think it matters. They think, oh, it's Christmas. We probably should say thank you. What's a good gift? I don't know. They divide however many clients they have. They have 100 clients. They're like, hey, Susie, here's $100 a person. Here's $10,000. Go make it rain. And they're giving gifts that they're like horrible. Like, here's a case of wine to everybody. It's gone in like a day. They give a bunch of like jackets with their logo on it. Would you ever go to somebody's wedding? Your best friend's wedding on the Tiffany's vase, compliments of blah, blah, blah video, or compliments of Ernst & Young? Hell no. Why would you do that in a business relationship when you would never do it in a personal relationship? They're still human beings. Why would you give a gift between Thanksgiving and Christmas when you're 47? Give a gift between Thanksgiving and Christmas when you're 47 themselves to death. They're stressed out. They're buying gifts. They're going to parties. And you want to try to build a relationship with your token of appreciation? You want to try to build a relationship with your token of appreciation? Like, you'd never call that relationship a token relationship, yet that's what you put in your note that's probably typed, not handwritten. Big no-no. And so people spend literally billions of dollars will be spent between Thanksgiving and Christmas to just blend in and have things that end up in the trash can or re-gifted. So we won't allow our agency. Somebody hires us to do gifts. One of the first rules is no ABC gifting. No anniversaries, no birthdays, no Christmas. And people think we're like crazy because a gifting company makes all of their money between Thanksgiving and Christmas. We don't. Because we're an entrepreneur, we understand if you put $1 into this, you better get $10 back out some way, shape, or form. And the only way you can do that is by going against the grain and following what we call the Giftology system and recipe. By the way, your entire audience wants to go download our playbook that we charge tens of thousands of dollars to execute for companies. They go to giftologyplan.com. They can walk through why you don't send gifts at Christmas, why it's stupid to send gifts for referrals. People are like, I want to say thank you. I'm like, are you in the relationship business or the transaction business? They're like, oh, we're all about, even if somebody sells toilet paper, they're like all about value. And nobody says we're the cheapest, we're the worst, we're a commodity. Everybody says we're all about relationships. And I'm like, if somebody gives you a referral and you give them a gift, what did you just turn that relationship into? A transactional, obligatory relationship. You should be sending things year-round at what I call planned randomness. So it's surprise and delight. Why am I sending the gifts? Not because you signed a deal, dumb time. Hey, I give you $1 million, here's your bottle of wine. Stupid, transactional. Hey, you give me $1 million referral, here's your Amazon gift card, stupid, transactional. You send even a sucky gift, but you put, I was just thinking about you, I'm sending this just because. Now all of a sudden the other person's like, they didn't do anything. I didn't do anything for them. Why are they sending this to me? It's not my birthday. It's not an anniversary. I didn't do anything for them. Why are they sending this to me? It's not my birthday. It's not an anniversary. A random time, and there's no ask behind it. There's no reward behind it. It's just, I was thinking of you. Now all of a sudden the person feels like $1 million. They feel VIP. They feel special. Now if you give a world-class gift that follows all the recipes and you do it at the right time, that's where you get like Tony Robbins and clients of ours that are like their faces melted off because they're like, nobody in 30 years has ever thought about and honored us this way. Like we just did a gift yesterday that landed to Dabo, who's one of the top coaches of all time, coaches Clemson. He can afford anything he wants. Clients hired us to love on him, and he's like almost in tears. Why? It was not tied to anything. We sent it to him from the client, and it was in a crazy $3,000 wood box with a video, by the way. The $3,000 strong box had a video screen built in with the clients pouring out their hearts into why Dabo has made such an impact in their life. And now Dabo's like, I've never received it. This is unbelievable. Now he's received, think about the rings and the trophies and the accolades. If we can melt Dabo's face off, we can melt anybody's face off, but you have to understand, if you don't get the details right, it's like baking bread. If you don't put yeast in, don't expect to get bread. I don't care that you did it 100,000 times. If you don't put yeast in every single time, you will not get bread.
Love it. And that's really, thinking outside the box. All the things that you said are so important. I think one of the biggest things, my idea around gifting too, yes, planned randomness, which it's a psychological thing. I don't think of it that way, but it's like, if you wanted to make an impact on that person, it can't be when everything else happened. That's why everyone's like, well, did you call that person on their birthday? I'm like, everyone's calling on their birthday. I call them other times and say hi and thinking of you, right? Because that makes a big deal. On your birthday, I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone else.
No, it's a check the box. Nobody wants to feel like you check the box. If you're married,
no.
If I'm married, been married for 12 years, got 4 daughters. If I show up on my anniversary, my wife's birthday, and on Christmas, do I earn brownie points? Hell no. No, it's table stakes. I better show up for my wife on our anniversary. It's when you show up on the random Tuesday and say, hey, honey, I canceled the day of work, and you should go to the spa at the Four Seasons. All of a sudden, she's like, what?
Yep.
It's not rocket. None of this is rocket science, but I think especially dudes are the worst at this. We get so linear. With type A, we want to attack. We want to conquer the world, and we forget our emotional intelligence of how to make somebody feel special. How do we bring romance to the relationship? And it's the surprise. Even billionaires love to be surprised and delighted. And we think, oh no, I just need to check this box. It's birthdays, it's Christmas, it's bonuses. No, you got to be a surprise, or else you're wasting your money.
And one of my, I think the biggest thing you said is making the guy cry, which I love to make people cry. No, I'm just kidding. But finding that emotion, right, and how you can trigger that emotion, and how do you go about thinking about how to trigger that emotion for someone, especially if you don't have a deep relationship? Because I think that's the most important thing you can do, and do it without expecting anything in return.
Yeah, if you give expectations, you ruin it. Game over. You give your wife a gift and then expect something that night. It wasn't a gift; it was a manipulation. You were trying to bribe them. You were trying to buy them. That's not what we're talking about. If you give a gift and then ask for a referral, you spent money to annoy, frustrate, piss off, or guilt that other person. That's not a gift.
Yep.
So expectations ruin everything. Vaynerchuk we talked about on his show, if you keep score and do things for people, make these deposits, these love bombs that we're talking about, and then you come back and say, you owe me. You just spent money to distance yourself and create a gap in that relationship. So no question, the expectation completely ruins. Now, we're all in business to make a profit. If I give out 100 gifts, I'm hoping that some of them land and hit with my clients, and I'm hoping referrals are generated. And oftentimes it's more than even expected. I might expect a 5x return, and I get a 50x return. Because return on relationship, ROR, I have some clients, it's a few thousand % of literally I put $1 in and I got like, $100 back out. Like, that's crazy. Like, you can't get that from Facebook ads. You can't get that from anything else. So for sure, the expectation when you do something, you better not attach anything to it, or else you're not gifting, you're manipulating.
And how do you go about finding that emotional gift, right? And especially, because you talked about it, and I think that you have great ideas, but guys are like, okay, knife.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say is that the item itself is only 50% of the impact. The reason we still do the knives, like Dabo can go buy his own knife set. The reason it was impactful was the other parts of the recipe, the timing matters. But what was engraved on it was quotes of wisdom and scripture. He's a person of faith. So all 40 of the knives, this is a $10,000 gift that we did for Dabo, all in with the box and whatever else. But once again, he could buy 100 of those sets. It was the engraving of scripture and quotes of his that made it now an heirloom. It's a legacy play. And his wife was engraved on all the pieces. A lot of times people are like, oh, these guys like golf or like fishing or they like football. And I'm like, I don't care what the guy likes. I don't care what the girl likes. That's the decision maker. What about the inner circle? What's their assistant like? What's their assistant's name? What's their wife or husband's name? What are the kids' names? So when, the reason the knife set landed so well is the videos and the knives all included Dabo's wife. Guess who never gets any accolades in any business or any sports relationship? She doesn't. It's always like, oh, she's a strong woman behind it. She's half the equation, but she never gets in. She's half the equation, but she never gets in. Why? Their family, their legacy, their heirloom. That's why I like things that center around the kitchen. Why? Their family, their legacy, their heirloom. That's why I like things that center around the kitchen, because most people, whether you're making $50 grand a year or $5 million a year, they're foodies, they entertain, they host. What do we do when we gather our most valuable? Even in 2021, if we bring people into the inner sanctum of our house, it's the kitchen. It's our home. And so anytime you can tie back to family, legacy, so people are like, John, you sent out these knife sets. How did you know that I love to cook? And I'm like, because you're a human being. How did you know? Like, we do these $2,000 artifact mugs. How'd you know that I love coffee? And I'm like, 50-50 odds that you like coffee or tea. So a mug that tells your whole life story, these artifact mugs, I've made billionaires cry with these things. Not because the stupid mug, the clay is worth $20. It's the core values, the why, the tragedy overcome. When you put that into a functional piece of art or a tool, there's certain common hot buttons across all human beings. I can do the knife set if I do all the details well. If you cut one corner, like instead of doing a handwritten note, you do a typed note. What does that communicate? You automated it and you did it to the masses. So I can send something out to 10,000 people if I follow the recipe. 9,000 of them are going to love it. There's going to be 1,000 of them that are just going to be like, whatever. It's like if you send Ferraris to everybody, at least 5 douchebags are going to be like, you sent me yellow ones and I like red. Like, so you're never going to send me yellow ones and I like red. Like, so you're never going to there's a trend, there's a psychology, there's a recipe to it. And a lot of it isn't just spending the most money, it's being the most thoughtful. People say it's the thought, John, it's the thought that counts. Really, that's an excuse to give a sucky gift. It's the thoughtful thought. It takes energy, it takes effort, it takes research, it takes time. That's when somebody gets it, they're like, holy crap, you flew to Afghanistan to find this one rare mineral. That's part of the story that makes people say, dang, that was amazing. It's the story. It's not just writing the check. It's tying in the meaning. It's tying in the thoughtfulness. It's tying in the creativity. It's tying in the family. It's all of these tie-ins that make somebody say, in 50 years in business, this is the most powerful thing. This is the most honoring thing anybody's ever done for me. And that doesn't happen on accident. That doesn't happen by ordering something from Amazon. It typically takes some energy and effort to pull this together. And that's from Amazon. It typically takes some energy and effort to pull this together. And that's the recipe I follow in our agency. It's not difficult to do. It just takes time, energy, and effort. Like, it's not rocket science. And that's why I laugh. People are like, John, you're holding back. And I'm like, I'm not holding anything back. Like, I'll give you the entire recipe. Good luck. If you have to do it for one person, for your wife, no problem. You can do it.
Yeah.
But if you want to do this for 50 investors, good luck. It's hard to scale it. It's not hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's simple but not easy. Yeah, I mean, and that's it's fundamentals, right? I would go back to it. Every great marketer, every great person here I talk to, it goes back to fundamentals, and it's fundamentals are not scalable generally, right? It's like John Wooden tying. Everyone had to tie their shoe, learn how to tie their shoe the right way, but it's not scalable. You had to show each person, and I think that's important if someone wants to do 30, 40 of these in there. So and I think we didn't even talk about it, but I remember when we had Joey Coleman on and he talked about you. And, I think one of the biggest things is to come back to is when you're looking at this and like, oh, this is money and this is time. I'm like, if you just want to do the ROI, a 5% increase in customer satisfaction leads to a 25% increase or a 25 to 100% increase in profits. I think what Joey says. Yeah, your bottom line. And you have happier people working with you. When you make mistakes, they're gonna be happier about it. They're not gonna be as hard on you. They're gonna stay with you longer. You're gonna enjoy your relationship. And I love all this. I've got two questions. I want to finish up with the holiday stuff because it's like, what do we do instead of the holiday? We just ignore it. But before we get into that, I want to ask you, how do I install this into my business? Right? Because it's one of those things, I'm going to listen to this and be like, yes, gifts. Leave here and be like, oh, busy, can't do this. How do we install this? It's like, oh, John was, yeah, I send one gift and then, and then one gift. And 2 years, 2 years later, I'm like, oh, I should do that again. So how do you do that?
Yeah. So relationship plan is, and they're like a deer in headlights. I'm like, if relationship plan is, and they're like a deer in headlights. I'm like, if these relationships allow you to have a business and you don't have a plan for them, they're going to go somewhere else, whether that's a client, an employee. So first off, you have to have the plan, and that's like identifying the relationships. So first off, you have to have the plan, and that's like at the Ritz. Two, if you want your team to own this process, Carlton. So I send my employees to the Ritz-Carlton. So if you want your team to own this, you need to start. Most people want to start externally first. The way that we're talking about their families, their kids, whatever else, send them love bombs. Now all of a sudden they're like, wow, this is amazing. Now if they read the book Giftology, they own it. They own it. Most of the clients that are not hiring our agency are hiring their own. As the owner of the business, don't have time to be super creative with every single relationship and hand select these things and ship them in. You got to go back into our relationships. And our best clients go up even important. You plan it out, you take a percentage of the 20%. So you get to keep 80% as the owner, you reinvest, let's say 10%. The next year, that's 200 grand that you're investing, but the next year you should be at 1.4, which means you took that 200 grand and turned it into 400 grand. Like this isn't just like hold hands and sing kumbaya, like, this is the little like hinge that could swing these huge doors, the culture, and now your sales reps are like, we got to send more gifts because I know I'm going to make more commission by loving on these relationships. And your HR person's like, we need to send more gifts because we need our employees. You're like, that's all of our employees. We pay to have their houses cleaned every other week. Money, how much is it? I'm like, it's $3,000. It gives us 30 grand of loves on their employee or their health insurance. Those are table stakes. So if relationships are what are going to drive your business forward, If relationships what are going to drive your business forward, you have to figure out ways to show up on what are going to drive your business forward. You have people commonly, and either you outsource that to a company to help you, and now all of a sudden, like you start to send good. Holy crap! One of them turned into a referral, and it starts to become addictive. You start to get the momentum going, and all of a sudden, we got to invest more. But you're like, dang, we has to start somewhere, and usually that's writing down and modeling it to your internal employees first.
And it's so smart. I think I was thinking about this too, even like so many people come and they're like, we want to be a thought leader. I want to be an authority. I'm like, are you doing this for your internal team already? Like that's where you need to start. You start inside and move out. Everyone wants to start big and move in. And I'm like, nothing happens. That's such fantastic advice. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to give gifts at the holiday season. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to send wine. Should I just not do anything?
We're grateful for you giving, and they'll at least be the first thing that they receive. I think there's a lot of people that are doing that. Whatever else I would do is I'd take thoughtful, or it's such a noisy time. It's such a noisy time. Nobody, like, people think they're going to miss my gift. No, they're not. They're so busy. They're going to miss my gift. No, they're not. They're so busy. Make it way so much clutter. Wait until the end of January. And so it's not that you don't, you can't do something near really grateful for what happened in 2021 holidays. It's just usually there's this, fall off the cliff feeling in January. The noise, that's why, you doing a party in January, now people are the noise. That's why, you doing a party in January, now people are excited because it's the only thing they have to go to in January versus freckles and, if you're a person of faith, church services. Yep. I mean, it is the most cluttered time on the planet. So to me, whether it's a physical gift or a experience, find a time when it's actually Grinch, like we've been written up in articles. My kids, by the way, but in business, we want investment, especially as entrepreneurs, because we can't outspend our publicly traded competitors. So if we invest 50 grand as an entrepreneur, 100 return from that, and if you want return, then you gotta fight go against the grain and avoid the holidays at all costs.
Love it. And it's people say it's the Grinch, but that's not the whole thing. I like the cards, right? That's not the meaning of the holidays in the beginning, right? And just so much stuff is coming in. I agree with you completely on that. I agree completely, and I think it's a good thing. But make sure then you take that money and install it in January and get ready and set that time apart.
I do this once a year, and I'm like, when you teach your kids, do you teach them to say please and thank you once a year? Hell no. You teach them gratitude is a must. You teach them gratitude is a must. 50 relationships 4 times a year, but never at the same 50 relationships. Wow. 4 times a year, but never at the same time. So if one year it's February, the next year it's March. Because if you do expectations, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's everybody gets this. It's in January. It's just on autopilot. Whereas if you're mixing up the time of when it's showing up and you're not tying it to a date or a holiday or whatever else, it's like, hey, that's where the planned randomness, a date or a holiday or whatever else, it's like, hey, that's where the planned randomness died. Now I'll just, instead of December, I'll do it in January. No, you can do it Q1, maybe one year it's January, the next year do it in February of what's coming next and when. And so yeah, I mean, but budget it, make it a real, not an afterthought of what do we have with this, just like we are any other investment in our business. If you hire 2 employees, it's 100 grand or 200 grand or 50 grand, whatever the numbers are. Think about those real metrics the same way you would in any other part of your business, and then be proactive. We're going to wait until we've been in business 10 years, and then we're going to get metrics the same way you would in any other part of your business, and then be proactive. Most people are, we're going to wait until we've been in business 10 years, and then we're going to give gifts. About themselves. So don't put a give gifts. Logo on it. Don't make the gift about you. And if you able to show up at an unusual time and make the gift about them, you'll be in the top, 0.1%.
That's great advice. And yeah, not sending out logo stuff. I will have to admit though, people do love our t-shirts, and people are always asking for our t-shirts. I'll send you a t-shirt, but that's not a gift.
That's cool swag.
Yeah.
Crying when you give them a t-shirt. And so it's a cool kinds of people. I think a lot of people hate swag, but there are a percent of people that if they're bought into your brand, they might like the swag. So there's nothing wrong with swag, but in what swag is. They're not the same. There's nothing wrong with them. Promotional product, not the same. A gift card, trinket, tchotchke, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how very different than cool swag. Both cool, but very different topics. Very different than cool swag. Both cool, but very different topics.
Great. I mean, it's such good advice. And yeah, I see so often people think it's a gift, and it's like, you're paying me, you're making me wear your stuff.
Yeah, for some people, when you give it, I feel like there's gift guilt because you're thinking, oh, this is amazing. They're thinking, I'm never going to wear this thing with a logo the size of a softball on it. And they're going to maybe they'll wear it once a year on the golf course to make you feel good. But in general, they're thinking, if anything, I'm going to wear my own logo. And I own Giftology. I don't even wear Giftology stuff. And I think the higher up the food chain you go with leaders, I think the higher up the food chain you go with leaders, You're not giving the CMO of Pepsi a Pepsi shirt with a logo the size of a billboard on it. No. Like, this is, like, she doesn't want that. He doesn't want that.
Nope. I mean, this is fantastic. If someone wants to work with you, where's the best place to work with you if they want to hire you to help gift their clients?
I would say going to giftologygroup.com. They can fill out an application, and we basically we have a lot of small to mid-sized companies as clients. We have some big Fortune 500 companies, but our sweet spot is the David going up against Goliath that wants to, instead of spending $100,000 on Facebook ads or whatever else, they're sponsoring an event for $250,000 at a conference. They want to redirect a portion of that to do some things, but they have to have some sort of sophistication and scale before it's going to make sense for them to be able to engage. And we're not trying to replace everything that somebody's doing. We're just trying to look at everything they're investing for HR, marketing, biz dev, relationship, and saying, out of all of this, is there 20% that's not performing as well? And can we redirect that over here? Instead of getting a 2x return, can we get a 5x return? But the application process return, can we get a 5x at Giftology Group is the...
Love it. And Giftology is a fantastic book. It's an easy read. I love it. It's full of stories, which I love too. So make sure to check that out. It's really, really, I think it's probably one of those books that you should read at least, once a year to remind you of all these important relationship things. John, so, and is LinkedIn the best, if someone wants to connect with you personally, LinkedIn, what's the best place to follow you? Instagram. Yeah, Instagram at John Ruhlin there as well. But I would say that personally, Instagram, business-wise, LinkedIn. All right, cool. Well, we'll follow you on Instagram and put all those links in the show notes. John, before we go, we got like 2 or 3 minutes. I real quick, this season's all about marketing stories, big on storytelling, video storytelling, but also just stories in general. What is your craziest gift story? The story that you don't tell often, but it's just like, it was like, or maybe one time it just flopped. Is there a story that you remember that was like, man, this was just so weird?
Yeah. Well, we've had we had a group that was going after prospects. They were all people that were worth 9 figures or more.
Wow. In
the Pacific Northwest. It was an investment fund. They were basically raising money to buy real estate, and they picked the top 50 wealthiest families. And I said, hey, we're going to do knife sets. We're going to build these like $1,500 knife sets. And they're like, cool. So it's like targeting like executive. And so we send off the first round of gifts, and they get an email. The VP of sales gets an email of Fortune 100 company, and the guy said, "Got your package. We'll probably take your meeting if you start engraving my new wife's name on the knives." And neighborhood is this guy. And I was horrified for a second, and then I was like, you know what? The goal of these gifts, because they're prospects, right? This is like their Dream 100, half of their Dream 100. And I'm pissed. I'm gathered the data. They had the data, but the data was out of date. This happened, like there's probably 3 different people that this happened to. Happened in a YPO group, or else. And then I was like, what's the end result that we're going for? A response, right? We want a conversation. And they obviously liked the gift. They responded. They're just pissed because their new wife is pissed because the ex-wife's name's on the knives. And so I said, maybe we should start engraving ex-wives' names on all these knives because we were looking for a response. We got the response. Let's triple down. And instead of a $1,500 gift, let's send him a $4,500 gift with the new wife's name on it. And now he'll be happy. You'll get the meeting. And maybe you wouldn't have got the dialogue. What's interesting is the VP of sales of that company was really wasn't in sales. He couldn't bring himself to reach back out to that client, and it made me realize like if you're going to do things, a fun story is the risk that comes with it. Like we have done gifts. I can't even tell the person we did and for whatever reason, it was like an insane gift. The client stopped getting responded to by the podcaster. Somehow we pissed off the person. If people are like, oh, I want no risk, I'm like, then you don't want us. Because most people only focus on the 1 or 2 or 3 that go wrong versus a little bumps in the road, then you're not going to get that, the huge whale, the huge opportunity, the huge referral. Because in business, if you're going to be different, we've had clients that have gotten gifts and that we didn't realize they're getting investigated for fraud. And a beautiful gift shows up and they're like pissed because over 21 years, we've had some things go sideways, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, but marketing in general, things go sideways. I mean, that's what I love about the stories. It happens. It happens to all of us. And anyone that tells you it doesn't, and I think that's the biggest point, and we'll leave on that, is if you're not taking risks, you're not going to have big wins. It's just not going to happen. Oh, that's awesome, John. Well, John, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, this has been fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you all for taking us on your journey. Make sure to go check out Giftology. This has been Iron Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.